Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hot and sunny weather is on the way for virtually all of us, but overnight it will be gloomy and damp in the northwest. Clear spells elsewhere, turning increasingly warm through the day on Wednesday as high pressure builds in. However, over the top of that high, we do have some weak weather fronts pushing into northwestern parts of the UK. That's been thickening up the cloud across western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the day. Those thicker clouds push into the north and west of England, as well as Wales overnight, bringing some drizzle in places, particularly northwestern hills and coasts. A lot of hill fog and coastal mist around as we start off Wednesday here, but a mild start, cooler towards the southeast, but that's where we see the best of the sunshine first thing and temperatures quickly rising. And in fact, it's blue skies for much of East Anglia, the south and southeast of England, some patchy cloud towards Devon and Cornwall, Somerset as well. West Wales, I think some thicker cloud over North and West Wales and some drizzle over the hills. But it's Western Scotland, Northern Ireland where we see the thickest cloud and some mist and murk, as well as outbreaks of rain and drizzle. The clouds tend to lift and break in many places during the morning. Skies turn brighter, but with the exception of Western Scotland, where it stays generally gloomy and damp throughout much of the day. Eastern Scotland faring well for sunny skies, likewise for England, Wales, Northern Ireland, skies brightening. Sunny spells and turning warmer. A warmer day than Tuesday, and it's going to turn hotter still as that high pressure increasingly dominates the weather. So we start off once again on Thursday with some low cloud and some drizzle for the north and west of Scotland, but it tends to fizzle away and push north through the day as that area of high pressure exerts its influence, and with increasing spells of sunshine during the rest of the week and into the weekend, we're going to see the heat build not just in the south but widely across the UK.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. In East Riding of Yorkshire, repairs on the M62 westbound between junctions 37 and 36 have closed 2 lanes. The M57 southbound exit slip at Knowsley Junction 1 is shut for urgent roadworks. The M1 southbound in Leicestershire has 2 lanes closed between junctions 21 and 20. Essex commuters note, the M25 anti-clockwise exit slip at junction 26 is closed for emergency repairs. In Surrey, 3 lanes are closed between junctions 11 and 10. In Devon, the M5 southbound at junction 31 is partially closed. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A state visit for President Macron of France, or perhaps it's even a victory lap, I don't know. The King tonight will say there are no borders between our countries. Is he right to say that? I'll be joined in the studio by a Bridgerton star who was mugged in a cafe in London and has now decided that London isn't worth living. And I tell you what, she's far from being on her own. In Germany, the Chancellor objects to the pride flag being flown on the Bundestag, following similar problems in Warwickshire in this country. Let's discuss the pride flag. Does it really make sense in 2025? Before all of that, let's get the news with Sam Francis.
Nigel, thank you, and a very good evening to you. Just after 7 o'clock, the top story tonight. Emmanuel Macron has delivered a landmark address to both houses of Parliament, calling for renewed French-British unity to protect global order. Speaking earlier in the Royal Gallery, the French president praised the brotherhood of arms that has defined the nation's shared history and declared, quote, Europeans will never abandon Ukraine. He urged the UK and France to shout order to the world and said the fight for a Ukraine ceasefire must continue to the very last minute. At tonight's state banquet, the King is also expected to say both nations face complex threats, but will meet them as friends and allies. Well, as President Emmanuel Macron has set off his national tour of London and the UK, wildfires have broke out in the south of France, with Marseille Airport closed tonight. Around 200 firefighters, backed by helicopters and fire engines, are battling that blaze. Residents have been told to stay indoors and keep streets clear for emergency crews. No casualties have been reported, but flights have been diverted to other airports. Breaking news tonight, Greg Wallace has been sacked as presenter of MasterChef after an independent inquiry into allegations of serious misconduct. The decision comes as 50 new claims have emerged, including accusations that Wallace groped colleagues and exposed himself to junior staff. He denies those allegations. In a statement, Wallace says he's been cleared, though, of the most serious claims, but admitted some past comments and behaviour had been inappropriate. Grace Dent and John Turode will front the next series of Celebrity MasterChef as the broadcaster awaits the full findings of the investigation. The Horizon IT scandal had disastrous consequences for sub-postmasters and may have contributed to at least 13 people taking their own life, according to the findings of a major public inquiry. The report concluded that post office bosses maintained the fiction that the Horizon software was always accurate, even as innocent staff were wrongly prosecuted. It also found victims and their families should now be eligible for compensation, including relatives affected by personal injury. The Post Office has issued an unreserved apology. And here's what the chairman of the inquiry, Sir Wyn Williams, had to say in his findings.
As I have said once already, but I repeat, the picture which has emerged and which is described in my report is profoundly disturbing. In summary, what does that picture reveal? Many thousands of people have suffered serious financial detriment, and for a sizable proportion, that detriment subsists. Many people have, inevitably, suffered emotional turmoil and significant stress in consequence.
Junior doctors in England have voted in favour of taking strike action over a pay dispute. That's according to the British Medical Association. Resident doctors, otherwise known as junior doctors, are seeking a 29% pay rise. There are fears, though, the industrial action will now cause prolonged disruption in the NHS, with walkouts potentially lasting until January next year. Number 10 said this lunchtime that resident doctors have already had a pay rise of almost 29% over the past 3 years, adding that it was disappointing that they want to strike. And Lord Tebbit, one of the most influential Conservative politicians of the Thatcher era, has sadly died at the age of 94. He entered Parliament in 1970, serving as party chairman and held several senior cabinet roles. Downing Street said he was a major figure in British politics who will be missed by many. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with another update at 8 o'clock. Now, though, it's over to Nigel.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
President Macron of France is here on a state visit. He is the first leader of a European Union country to have a state visit since the country voted Brexit 9 years ago. And boy, are they rolling out the red carpet for him. Not much. Have a look at him here, getting into an open-top carriage to ride through the streets of Windsor with the King. It really was quite something. And then we moved on in Windsor to an inspection of the Guard, and I thought this next clip that you're about to see was really, really interesting, all because it's a matter of protocol. And normally, when someone visits this country, whether it's the King now or the Queen before, it's kind of, they're normally very deferential. They're normally very deferential. But in this case, if this clip comes up in a moment, and I hope it does, we will see them inspecting the Guard. Not there just yet. It will be in a moment. Anyway, what's interesting about this is he then went on to speak right next to the robing room in the Palace of Westminster. And we're going to go on later on tonight to a big state dinner that will take place at which the King, and we're told, is going to talk about the relationship between our country, the importance of defence cooperation, etc. But what is particularly interesting is the King is going to say, talking about modern threats in the world, no fortress can protect us because between our countries, we know no borders. I'm really sorry. I'm not a Republican. I'm not in the habit of criticising the royal family. Perhaps he's been poorly advised. But actually, we are a fortress. We're an island. It gives us massive advantages, as it has done throughout the whole of history. And to say there are no borders, well, I suppose in some ways he's right, because at the moment the dinghies cross the channel and nothing much seems to happen. But I think the King is making a mistake in saying this, because absolutely what his subjects want is for there to be very strong borders between us and France, whilst at the same time we have great cooperation. Now, Macron spoke about migration, he spoke about these threats, he spoke about the problems, and Keir Starmer is pushing very, very hard for a one-in, one-out deal. So one crosses the channel, we'd be allowed to send them back, apparently, and then someone that they allege, or we allege, to be genuinely a refugee would come. I don't think for a moment this deal is going to get signed on Thursday. I think the other European Union countries would object to it. France, under EU rules, could not decide this for herself. And even if they did, would one in, one out actually make any sense? Would it be workable? I don't know. My thought for you back at home is the King right to say there are no borders? Let me know what you think. Tweet #Farage on GB News or email farage@gbnews.com. I'm joined in the studio by Sir Ronald Jayawardena, former Conservative MP and Minister, and Joe Phillips, journalist and former Press Secretary to the late Paddy Ashdown. Joe, it's difficult for the King. Mm-hmm. We all know it's difficult for the King, and he'll be given a whole stack of advice. I just contend that to say there are no borders between our countries is quite a big mistake.
Well, let's see the whole context of what he actually says. That's only the clip that, or the sort of the pre-briefing that we've heard.
Well, that's true, but we have been given quite large chunks of it.
Yeah, but I think, you know, what King Charles has tried to do, and he's much more touchy-feely than his mother was, and he is much more willing, and I think he's always had a small p political, interest in, whether it was the environment or whether it's architecture and all the other things that he cares about and has done. And was...
Well, the architecture's not that political, is it?
Well, it can be.
It can be.
It can be.
It doesn't have to be.
Environmentally, the environment has been very political, and he was,
he actually, I'll praise him because he's kept off that since he became the monarch.
Yes, and he's, and he was written off as a sort of a tree hugger and somebody who talked to his plants and things. I think this is his way of saying, we are friends, we are neighbours, not so much, we're an island and we're going to play Little England.
I don't know. Ranald seems to me to be quite a big mistake he's making, and something with which the vast majority of his supporters would disagree.
Well, I think, as Joe said, it's really important to look at the full context here. And my understanding is he's saying that it's our two countries that face a great deal of challenges in common. And as I think his wording is, as friends and as allies, we face them together. These challenges know no borders. And that is true.
Yeah.
The fact is, across the whole of Europe, there is a big problem with illegal immigration. The EU should be acting tougher. I know the Italian government would love the EU to be acting tougher.
One of the reasons I pushed so hard for Brexit. I saw the stupidity of what the EU was doing, allowing millions of people to cross the Mediterranean.
But I didn't think, therefore, there's anything wrong with him saying that there is a big problem that transcends these borders, and it's right that we should be trying to tackle them with the French. I think it's encouraging to see some activity now by the French police to try and stop boats crossing the channel. This is
honestly,
this is progress. But hang on a second. Hang on a second. There's much further to go.
Don't you think it's a coincidence that a BBC camera just happened to be on a beach a few days before the state visit when we've given them 800 million quid?
No, I'm not into conspiracy theories. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But the point is...
You were in government. You know all about spin.
Oh, there we go. You got me there. I think the point is that at least some action seems to be being taken now, which is a start. I happen to agree with you on this one-in, one-out deal. I mean, I think, the idea that fundamentally there'll be the same number of people, but it's a slightly different group of people. I'm not sure that's going to really have merit, and I'm not sure that you will even agree to it, as you say.
I think it's about people reuniting with their families. That is the general...
Joe,
but I'm sure
given
but absolutely.
Given the sheer number of people in Britain already, from Afghanistan, from Iraq, there's almost nobody that wouldn't say, I've got a third cousin in Huddersfield or whatever it may be.
I think they're direct family. I mean, we haven't seen the breakdown. And just to go back to what Ronald was saying about the King, he is talking not just about immigration. Yes, he's talking about the other things that we face as neighbours and friends and allies and all the rest of it. I think, interesting...
Well, that may be true, but the focus of this summit is, without doubt, because all the other stuff we've done at NATO, etc., over the course of the last few weeks, the overwhelming focus of this is what's happening in the Channel. The Prime Minister knows there is growing anger in the country. The numbers are 50% up on this time last year. I just don't think it's a very clever comment. But look, moving on. It seems to me that on this issue, Starmer is possibly now in even more trouble than the Conservative government was before.
Yes, I think he probably is. And I think, the figures have gone up hugely. Now, we know, you and I have talked about this before, that a lot of that is due to the weather. It is also the fact that they are putting more and more people on the boat. So there are fewer boats, but more people.
There was one came into Dover the other night with 90 on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, and regularly there's sort of 60, 70 people. So there's all of that. The smuggling gangs are getting braver and more bold and brasher, and they're moving down the French coast. And as anybody knows who's been to that area, it's sandy dunes, people hide, they get in, and all of that sort of stuff. But, the point that you've made, I mean, we have given billions to France to not really see very much done.
No. Well, Ranald believes it. He sees one boat being a slap.
Hang on. I didn't quite say that. I mean, a bit like selective quoting of the King. I think that's selective quoting of me.
Do you know what? I really am not selectively quoting the King. I was really careful.
I've got the quotes.
I was really careful to go through all of this.
The King. The King's quote is, "These challenges know no borders. No fortress can protect us against them this time."
We're an island.
No, these issues... As we've seen, if the French don't act, the people come here. So we've got to make sure we're working with the French.
It's wide open to misinterpretation. How much trouble do you think the government's in on this issue?
Huge amount of trouble, and yes, you know, our record could have been better. I'm not going to pretend otherwise.
Could it be better?
Look, I'm being honest. I'm saying yes. We should have acted earlier. We should have acted harder. I get that, and I think Kemi gets that as well. She said as much. But the point is that this government said they were going to so-called smash the gangs, and it's not happened, has it? People are now very disappointed.
In fact, the gangs actually have become even more brazen.
Exactly.
I chucked something out on social media last week where one of the gangs just put their mobile phone number.
Yeah.
Straight out there, it's on TikTok, it's elsewhere on social media. No, they are failing and failing badly.
You know, the government is cutting the backlog which you left
But that's
behind.
not the illegal...
Well,
this is not the people coming across the channel.
But some of those people will be there, people who will have come across the channel who've been sitting...
But it's being backfilled by more people coming across the channel.
Of course,
That's the
but,
problem.
you know, I know, but, you know, it's a bit like the prisons, which we may talk about later.
We're going to talk about that later. All I can say on this subject is that I think it's a disaster. I think it should be declared a national emergency on the grounds of security. And isn't it funny that all the fish that are within our 12-mile limit increasingly belong to the French, yet all the illegal migrants belong to us? Something is very wrong. In a moment, we will talk about a high-profile actress who was mugged of a telephone in London, fought back very successfully, but yet she's decided that London is not the place to live anymore. And let me tell you, she's far from alone.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Where Anna Riley, our intrepid reporter, is doing the toughest job in television right now, which is enjoying the sunshine. Anna.
Yes, Tom, it's definitely a tough gig for me today, I'll tell you. I'm on the Bridlington Fun Park ride here. This is the Zero Gravity ride. This fun park is, off we go. This fun park is right next to the sea. Oh, it goes quite quickly, I'll tell you. And people are out enjoying rides like this one. Off we go. It's a great boost for tourism, and we've been speaking to people here in Bridlington about what's so great about the sunshine. Let's have a listen.
We're on holiday. We've been here since last Friday, so we can't complain. It's been beautiful, and we're here till Monday, so we're really looking forward to the hot weather. As you can see, the sunburn.
It's lovely. It really is very nice. It's absolutely gorgeous. We deserve it, definitely.
It's good. We like the warm weather.
Yes, very nice. Loving it. Yes, like
the warm enough.
Weather.
Woo! Well, this ride is showing no signs of stopping, and neither is the sunshine. We're getting that heat wave at the weekend. Enjoy the weather and enjoy fun rides like this one. Get to Bridlington and get to the fun park.
Oh my gosh! Absolute bravo, Anna Riley. What an incredible piece of television. I hope they let you off at some point.
I thought they'd only do it once or twice. Bless her.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The 12th, a day to celebrate history, community and family here in Northern Ireland. Join me, Arlene Foster.
And me, Dougie Beattie, as we bring
you live coverage of the July 12th celebrations.
Right across the United Kingdom. It's all happening here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I asked you, was the King right to say what he's going to say later on at the state dinner? Judy says the King is wrong to say there are no borders and should not be making these unpopular comments. He clearly is not being informed of what is really happening in the Channel and the devastating impact it's having on British people. Another viewer, Anon, says, the French have never been our friends. Oh, come on. Our true allies are the USA, but this government just doesn't get it. And finally, Nicholas says, our sovereignty is not a game piece. It is not to be sold, eroded or given away. That is how people feel, well, if not the establishment. Yeah, look, I understand all of that. And it's going to be a pretty tense day for Keir Starmer on Thursday to negotiate a deal. Now, I am joined in the studio by Genevieve Cheneur, famous, of course, for Bridgerton, amongst many other things. And we're about to watch a video of you, and you were in a cafe.
Yeah.
And someone came in and mugged you, took the phone off you. But before being an actress, you were a rather fit athlete, weren't you?
Yeah, I was a Team GB artistic swimmer, so it used to be called synchronised swimming.
So you're quite fit.
Yeah, I'd say
right.
so.
Let's see Genevieve being mugged, and let's see what she did. So there you are. Boom.
Oh, my God.
You weren't having it, were you?
Yeah.
You weren't having it. I mean, goodness gracious me, you really...
know. I don't remember doing that. I don't remember anything from it, to be honest. I remember watching it and thinking I reacted like that.
It's really interesting to watch.
Pick up the phone.
Now, you know, you were brave.
And then I smack him.
Yeah, you do. You do. And I bet the audience at home are watching this and cheering and saying, well done, you. But that guy could have had a knife.
Yeah, and I was threatened with being stabbed.
Is that what was shouted by him or somebody else?
So he had an accomplice who hasn't been charged and was involved. And Zacharias, the guy that is in prison, he didn't threaten me with stabbing me. He was the one that took my phone, and luckily I had company, so we both managed to get him to the floor. But then the guy, you can see at the end of the video, comes over to me, and I thought he was going to help me. I thought he was going to call the police.
Yes.
And actually he was working with him, and he then proceeded to get involved. It became physical between all four of us. It went on for about 5 minutes. I ended up on Zacharias' back with my arm around his throat while someone else held him down. But then I was threatened with being stabbed twice, and I had to kick him in the chest, and all of the training and fight training that I'd been through just kind of came to me. But yeah, it was terrifying.
Well, he was charged, and in fact, he was sentenced just last week. So this is a very current story. I'm trying to work out, Genevieve, whether you're brave or stupid, because... No, I'm being serious here. Because, I mean, you know...
Both.
Because it is actually... the number of people carrying blades in London now, it is very, very frightening.
Yeah, I think this is a thing that I think we've all thought about in London. What would we do if someone stole our phone? And
the answer is we don't know.
We don't know, you don't know. And I didn't know how I was going to react. And when I watched the video, I didn't know I reacted like that. I completely blacked out. So my reaction was pure fight and flight. And I chose fight, clearly. But yeah, I mean, he could have stabbed me. I think I made a calculated decision in milliseconds that I was at the back of a cafe, and the chance of being stabbed at the back of a cafe with CCTV that was noticeable and in view was probably quite low. So I think I just made a really quick decision to, stand up for myself.
And after that, clearly something you thought about, reflected on at great length, and you've now kind of decided that London's not the place you want to live.
Yeah, I've lived here for 7 years. My career as an actor started here when I left sport as an athlete. And it's where I had to be for auditions, meeting people and everything like that. And I feel very fortunate that this has happened at a stage of my career where I can have Zoom meetings and I can come back and forth for auditions and stuff. But yeah, I don't want to be in the city anymore.
Well, you know, there was a poll out 2 weeks ago that said 57% of women were concerned for their safety walking out of an evening in London.
57's quite low, considering that every single female I have in my life is dealing with anxiety on the street, walking around.
So this is very bad news for London.
I mean, given that it's a city that's meant to, you know, thrive on art and is meant to be this incredible place, the fact that someone like myself, other women like myself, don't feel comfortable, how can it thrive?
Bad news. And how's the acting career?
It's going well, busy with auditions. You never know what's going to happen. Yeah, I've got a few commercials out and I'm on pencil for some stuff. So
I've seen the commercials, but
have you?
I'm not allowed to mention them.
Which one? The drinking or the teeth licking?
The tooth one, but we're not allowed to mention it on air. And Bridgerton, huge success.
Thank you.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Good for your career.
Yeah.
Well done. I want to commend you
thank
for fighting back as admirably
as
you did. I think we're supposed to say don't do that at home, but I understand what you did and why you did it. But it's really sad that you, amongst many, many others, are forced to feel this way about our once great city.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming in.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for coming in. Well, there we are. There's a very, very brave young woman. But wow, isn't it really worrying? Following on from that, there's a report out today suggesting that certain criminals should be let off, not get custodial sentences, not get criminal records if they only apologise to their victims. And I just think this is unbelievable. And I think the last story we heard is part of that. We're allowing the base of crime to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we're going to discuss all of that in just a moment. I think it's very, very serious. And I'm going to be joined in the studio by Charlie Taylor, HM Chief Inspector of Prisons.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Things have turned a little cooler across Italy, and a brisk northerly breeze will keep that going in Rome. Some heavy rain recently in Croatia, that's clearing away. Some of a shower in Madeira, but the Canaries fine, dry and sunny, as is Portugal and most of southern Spain. So there is the chance of 1 or 2 showers near Barcelona. It's fine and sunny across Greece and Turkey. Plenty of sunshine on offer here, turning dry now in Croatia, as I said. A chance of 1 or 2 showers later this week, though, in Rome. Goodbye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hot and sunny weather is on the way for virtually all of us, but overnight it will be gloomy and damp in the northwest. Clear spells elsewhere, turning increasingly warm through the day on Wednesday as high pressure builds in. However, over the top of that high, we do have some weak weather fronts pushing into northwestern parts of the UK. That's been thickening up the cloud across western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the day. Those thicker clouds push into the north and west of England, as well as Wales overnight. Bringing some drizzle in places, particularly northwestern hills and coasts. A lot of hill fog and coastal mist around as we start off Wednesday here, but a mild start, cooler towards the southeast, but that's where we see the best of the sunshine first thing and temperatures quickly rising. And in fact, it's blue skies for much of East Anglia, the south and southeast of England, some patchy cloud towards Devon and Cornwall, Somerset as well. West Wales, I think some thicker cloud over North and West Wales and some drizzle over the hills. But it's Western Scotland, Northern Ireland where we see the thickest cloud and some mist and murk, as well as outbreaks of rain and drizzle. The clouds tend to lift and break in many places during the morning. Skies turn brighter, but with the exception of Western Scotland, where it stays generally gloomy and damp throughout much of the day. Eastern Scotland faring well for sunny skies, likewise for England, Wales, Northern Ireland, skies brightening. Sunny spells and turning warmer. A warmer day than Tuesday, and it's going to turn hotter still as that high pressure increasingly dominates the weather. So we start off once again on Thursday with some low cloud and some drizzle for the north and west of Scotland, but it tends to fizzle away and push north through the day as that area of high pressure exerts its influence, and with increasing spells of sunshine during the rest of the week and into the weekend, we're going to see the heat build not just in the south but widely across the UK.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've had a sneak preview of the Leveson Review on criminal justice reform, which will suggest things like people could avoid criminal records for theft, drug use, public disorder, which would reduce the backlog that occurs in magistrates' courts, Crown courts, if they give a written apology to the victim. Sentencing reform will mean that some may serve under 20% of their original sentence. Well, I'm really worried about this. It seems to me that we are, you can shoplift, you can do all sorts of things, and we're raising the level of what is acceptable or unacceptable for crime in our society. I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio by Charlie Taylor, HMP Chief Inspector of Prisons, and my panel are back with me. So we've had look, we know the prisons were completely chocker, sort of at maximum 80-odd thousand capacity. We've seen the government with early release schemes. But I worry about all of this. I mean, for theft, you can avoid a criminal record by saying sorry. Where's this taking us all?
Well, I think from my point of view, we're glad to see the numbers of people coming into prison reduced, because it was reaching such a state, there was such overcrowding, that actually none of the things that the public would want to be going on in prisons, the sorts of purposeful activity, training, giving people the kind of education so when they leave prison they go on and get a decent job and actually take care of their families and get on with their lives. So from an Inspectorate of Prisons point of view, we're glad to see anything that bears down on the numbers. Yeah. One of the other causes of such high numbers within prisons is the remand population. So there are huge amounts of prisoners waiting very long periods of time for a trial.
So they're waiting for trial, but they're deemed to be dangerous, so they have to stay in prison for that period.
They've been remanded because the court sees them as too dangerous or a flight risk, and therefore they're put in court. But sometimes we're seeing...
So how many remand prisoners are there?
There's about 18,000 remand prisoners, yeah. And there used to be about sort of 12... It's around 20%. It used to be about 12 to 14%.
And this is because of a massive backlog in the court?
This is the COVID backlog, yeah, absolutely.
See, Joe, you feel quite strongly about them, and I think this is appalling, but you think it might just...
Well, I mean, what is appalling is the backlog, which, as Charlie rightly says, some of that is due to COVID, but some of it is also the system that we have, that you can... Nobody has a right to trial by jury in the country. They have a right to a fair trial. Mm-hmm. But because we've only got magistrates and Crown Court, you can say, actually, I've been accused of this, that and the other. I go to magistrate. I want to be tried by a Crown Court jury. That means it's delayed. Now, there are 77,000 cases, some of them really serious, like rape and assault, and they are waiting years and years and years. Now, that might mean those people, the accused, are on remand, as Charlie said, but it also means the victim is not getting justice, nothing's happening, and you can't keep, every political party says, we're going to be tough on crime. Well, you can't be tough on crime unless you're actually going to make
But the fact,
it work.
Joe, I get this, we have a massive backlog. Once again, lockdown comes back to bite us.
But that's only part of it.
But only part of it.
Yeah.
But, Randall, as I say, I worry that we start to accept all sorts of level of crime. I mean, when Giuliani was successful in New York, he went the other way round. He said, you've got to eliminate the low-level stuff. And we're going the other way, I think.
Yeah, I think, you've got to send a very clear signal that people have to behave within the law and that nothing else will be tolerated. And if you don't, then those entry routes to crime escalate very quickly. I also think it's important to say that as well as trying to retrain and reform people in prison, it's also important that there is an element of of punishment that is there, because victims deserve some rebalance. They deserve some retribution from the...
well, as society could do with being protected from some of these people.
Prison works in that regard. And so that's why I'm quite concerned to hear that as a result of some of these reforms that have been suggested, some people might end up serving about a fifth of the sentence being actually set out by the judge. And that's a sense that, the system becomes so disconnected from what people would expect. You know, someone might be given a 20-year sentence but serve a tiny fraction.
And what is extraordinarily alarming, and I didn't really know until today, and I'm really pleased we've got you here, given your job, is, so we know that drones are capable of picking things up and dropping them in. I'm just reading through the research notes on this. Drones are currently delivering up to 10 kilograms of drugs per flight into prisons.
Indeed.
So these are big drones.
Yeah. These are big, sophisticated drones run by serious organised crime who are making very large amounts of money out of prisons because there's a huge markup. You get far more bang for your buck if you can get contraband into a prison than you'd ever be able to sell it for on the street. So there is a big incentive for people to try and get stuff into prisons. And what we've said in our annual report is that it's getting in too easily. There are some prisons where windows have been breached by prisoners. You can see gaping holes in windows. And they can be in and out in a very short period of time. They can fly a package in, drop it off at a particular cell.
And up to 60% of inmates in the worst prisons test positive for drugs.
Yeah, this is random testing for drugs that goes on.
It's completely out of control.
So in some of the prisons, it's completely out of control, yeah. And the idea that prisoners in that jail are going to be able to do any kind of really rehabilitative activity, the idea they're going to do any work or learn any skills in order to be successful when they come out is simply fanciful.
And weapons as well?
Well, we have seen weapons come in. Fingers crossed, we haven't seen many weapons coming in, but we have seen weapons coming in. And, of course, that's a big concern. And talking to staff working in maximum security prisons like Long Lartin, like Manchester Prison, they're very nervous because when they open a cell door in the morning, they don't know what they're going to be confronted with.
Can I just ask you, Charlie, because one of the things that Rory Stewart, who was Prisons Minister, as you know, and in his excellent book, he wrote about the nonsense of all these broken windows where stuff, well, it wasn't drones then, it was packages being thrown to... And you sort of think, that's a little bit like zero tolerance. Make the windows unbreakable.
Absolutely.
You know, it's how you build
Well,
them.
what was astonishing, we inspected Manchester Prison. Loads of the windows were smashed. They had a prison window replacement programme, and the new windows are made of thick, toughened perspex, supposedly. Prisons have quickly worked out that if they rip the element out of their kettle, they could actually burn a hole through the window. So I think about £5,000 a pop to replace these windows. They were actually getting breached very quickly. So now they're now putting in new windows in order to deal with the problem in Manchester.
And is it possible that, given the way drone technology is doing, they can actually get prisoners out in the end?
Well, let's hope not. Let's hope the government takes what we're saying seriously. Let's hope that we get this drone issue dealt with, that we have netting in place, that we have CCTV in place, which we found broken at many of the prisons that we visit. The security systems are effective enough that there is the incentive to try and get drugs or to try and get contraband in this way is taken away.
So netting's the answer?
So netting is effective. Having good windows is effective. Having staff who are really on the case. I mean, what we've come across is things like grass not being cut in a prison and therefore a package being dropped into the grass, actually dipped in glue and then in grass clippings. We've seen packages disguised as AstroTurf and then dropped onto an AstroTurf pitch. And lots of prisons are bedevilled with piles of rubbish everywhere that we often complain about. Packages fly in with a rubbish bag, drop it into a pile, prisoner picks it up, disperse around the prison in no time.
Now, I've spoken to, obviously, off the record, one or two prison officers, and you tell me I'm wrong, please, by all means. But the impression I've got is that morale in the prison service is very low, that a lot of the old, experienced officers are saying, you know, what the hell with this, being replaced by younger prison officers who don't have quite the same level of control. Is that an accurate reflection?
Well, I think it depends on the prison you go to. I think what's alarming is when you go to a prison full of very inexperienced officers with very experienced prisoners, prisoners who've been inside, in some cases, for longer than some of these officers have been alive for. But we go to other prisons, somewhere like Oakwood near Wolverhampton. They managed to keep the drugs out. Humber up in Yorkshire. They managed to keep the drugs out. They managed to hang on to their staff because it's a decent place to work.
Yep.
Prisoners like being there. It's a productive place where people feel like they're making progress with their sentence towards coming out and actually doing something meaningful with their life.
So it's not all bad news.
So it's not all bad news by any stretch of the imagination.
No, interesting. Charlie, thank you so much for coming in and joining us, sharing your expertise with us. I've got to do one quick What the Farage moment. There was a hell of a row over a pride flag in Warwickshire the other day because our guys didn't want it flown, the chief executive did. Now it's the Bundestag who've flown the pride flag because, as you know, it's Pride Month, and the German Chancellor has taken objection. I want to know, Joe Phillips, why do we have a pride flag at all? I mean, what are this group of people campaigning for? Don't they have equality?
I don't think a flag is necessarily about campaigning, Nigel. I mean,
So why bother with it?
Well, why not? It's sort of
What do you
saying...
mean, why not?
Well, I mean, why? What is it harmful? And actually, the Chancellor of Germany was only responding to the decision made by the lower parliament. It wasn't his decision.
Ranald, I can't see the point of the flag at all.
Well, I think people should be able to have whatever flag they want, but over a national parliament, actually, it's about celebrating your nation, and I think it's no wonder the Chancellor of Germany has taken the decision
wouldn't you
he
celebrate a nation that's tolerant and
I think
welcoming?
the Union flag celebrates everyone who lives here.
We're talking about Germany.
Well, so the point is that I think the same point is true there with Germany.
Well, I tell you what. We'll leave it there. I object to the blooming thing. I can't see what it achieves. Now, in a moment, we're going to have a proper debate about my friend Donald Trump, because Netanyahu has nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, something I actually tried to do in the European Parliament a few years ago. Let's debate in a moment. Is Trump the peacemaker that I believe him to be?
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6am.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3pm till 6pm, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7pm, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
The 12th, a day to celebrate history, community and family here in Northern Ireland. Join me, Arlene Foster.
And me, Dougie Beattie, as we bring you live coverage of the July 12th celebrations.
Right across the United Kingdom. It's all happening here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been in Washington, and it culminated, his visit to meet President Trump, it culminated with a dinner last night in the Blue Room within the White House, and this is one of the things that Netanyahu had to say.
He's forging peace as we speak in one country and one region after the other. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Wow. Thank you very much.
Well, Trump almost stunned into silence for once there. He didn't quite know what to say. Now, this is interesting. I genuinely believe that Trump marked a very, very big departure from the neocons who had absolutely dominated American politics for the previous quarter of a century. And it didn't matter, frankly, whether they were Democrats or Republicans, they were all for war. And we generally joined them in all of those adventures. Trump has taken a very different approach. Yes, he is prepared to act. He acted against Iran the other day. He acted, of course, against Assad after a use of chemical weapons. He acted, too, against ISIS. But in general, I think one of the main aims of this president has been to try to negotiate peace deals. Now, the criticism would be he's perhaps been somewhat over-optimistic. The idea that you could negotiate an end to the Ukraine war in 24 hours hasn't quite happened. I must say, I did, with a group of MEPs, put forward a proposal that the European Parliament should nominate Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize, and I actually happen to think that the Abraham Accords, negotiated right at the end of his first term, were a very, very significant achievement. And I think the fact that Saudi Arabia were about to join those accords is one of the main reasons why Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th, a couple of years ago. Randall, it's funny because we're told, oh my God, if Trump wins, it'll be World War III. But he's the opposite, really, isn't he?
Yeah, I think fundamentally he doesn't want conflict at all. I think he quite would much rather that the US wasn't involved. And I think that's why he's asked Europe to spend more on defence so that we can be more responsible for what happens in this theatre. But the action against Iran is, in some ways, taking on what George W. Bush didn't want to do. And perhaps it's about saying that not only behind Hamas are Iran, but also Hezbollah and the Houthis in Yemen. Yeah. You know, so they are fighting all sorts of proxy wars against allies of our country and the United States. And I think you're right that, you know, the Abraham Accords were a massive deal that so few people know about. And that's a shame. So the more people that know about the influence that...
Go on, explain them. For those that don't know, explain them then.
Fundamentally, this provided a route for normalisation of relations between certain Arab countries that have signed up to it and Israel. And, you know, the fact that there are...
Trade, tourism,
investment... You know, so the fact that there are now investors from, say, Bahrain in Israel and vice versa, that is phenomenal. That is a great move forward for near neighbours who have very similar economic models and so on, to the point about trade and investment. It's good for people in both countries. So the fact that that happened is a great success of Trump 1. And, you know, the fact that he did take the action against Iran, and that seems to have actually quietened things. For now, we hope it remains that way. That may well be seen in time as a great success of Trump 2. But it is too early to tell.
Joe Phillips, I make the point he is an instinctive peacemaker. He's certainly far from being a neocon.
He may well be an instinctive peacemaker, but I cannot tell you, Nigel, how utterly nauseating it is to see Benjamin Netanyahu, that man who has caused so much damage and destruction and is wanted for war crimes.
Oh, well, yes, I mean, there are...
And I'm afraid to say that, you know,
there are some on the left that think that.
Well, you don't have to be on the left. There are an awful lot of people who think what he's doing to the Palestinians...
In Gaza.
Is absolutely appalling. And the idea that he...
And Iran?
and Iran, but let's talk about Gaza, because he doesn't want that war to end, and Donald Trump is giving him a green light to just carry on, do what you like, Benny. It's fine.
I know that
Netanyahu knows perfectly well that Trump is like a child, and you flatter him.
I know there are very, very strong feelings about Netanyahu. I mean, I get that, all right? But just focusing on Trump, actually, I mean, Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize, not for what he did, but for what he might do. Doesn't Trump deserve it?
No.
Why not?
No, because he hasn't done anything. You know, apart from the fact...
Ronald just explained the Abraham
That was
Woods.
last time round.
But he hasn't. He could still be nominated
Well,
for
he
that.
could be, but I think the way things are at the moment, Nigel, I mean, he may well be a peacemaker. He's so erratic and he is so mercurial. I mean, he bombed Iran even though his own intelligence said there was no nuclear weapon. You know, whether or not you believe it or not, I don't know.
No.
But I mean, if you
that
think,
is not true.
If you want to look at peace in the Middle East, then go back in history and look at Anwar Sadat. You know, look at those people who have been involved.
Well, he's tried to negotiate.
But you're never going to get peace with having humiliated Zelensky. Well, now he's trying
to humiliate Putin.
Yes, exactly. My point.
But
he is mercurial.
He is mercurial.
Yes.
I grant you
so
he's
you
mercurial.
cannot rely on him.
But the ultimate aim is peace. As far as the raid on Iran's concerned, you know, there were intelligence reports that perhaps it didn't do quite as much damage as had initially been thought. But it must have done some.
I mean, it's clearly done some. We've seen pictures that it has done some damage. It is a shame that perhaps the Iranian regime had more notice than we might have liked. And there are reports also of lorries carrying material around the country to avoid what they thought were impending attacks.
Because it was quite predictable.
Sadly, the fact that everything is broadcast on social media and elsewhere is a bit of a problem. But the fact that the regime has been weakened by it, that is positive. The fact that there is some sense of a step back from the brink in the region is a good thing. I mean, great to see Qatar's defences against the missiles also working, which reassured people in the wider region that Iran was not going to be able to cause havoc on everyone. But it's important for the US to remember that it's an important actor in that part of the world, and if it can stop the Iranian regime from influencing and fighting these proxy wars all over the region and beyond,
must be a good thing.
But hang on a second. Let us suppose it was somebody else other than Netanyahu, who is only doing it for his own interests.
I'm really talking about Trump more than anything.
I know you are. But the fact that he is so gullible makes him seem so fallible. You know, if Zelensky had nominated him, or even Putin, it might be serious. But it's quite clear that Benjamin Netanyahu is playing him for a fuel. And, you know, we'll let him turn the Gaza Strip into a Riviera.
Anyway. Now, I'm going to finish the show. I want to get sort of 30, 40 seconds from each of you. It is a big week with Macron here. It's a big state visit. It's going on for several days. Thursday is the big day of negotiation. Do you think Starmer's going to achieve much this week?
I hope so. But, I think it is always going to be, we need to see more than words. But he has done a reset with better relations.
Oh, he's given away our fish. Yes, 12 years, a massacre of the inshore fishing industries.
I was on that programme, as was
12
Ronald,
years, it's horrendous.
When you spoke to the Devon fish merchant who said, since Brexit, they have been swamped.
He's a fish merchant. He's a fish merchant.
Yes, I know.
However, you talk to the inshore fleet, it's a devastating, unnecessary deal. It's a total sellout. I would say to them, actually, we're not going to do anything. You know, how can you have the fish in our waters being caught by the French and all the illegals stay with us? Will he achieve anything?
Unfortunately, given by the record you've just set out, he may achieve something that might not be very good.
Well, Starmer's good at losing negotiations, isn't he?
When Labour negotiates, Britain loses. That is true. And we've seen that with Jagos, we've seen that with all sorts of things. I think with this, I think both sides do accept that there is a problem that does need to be solved. So I'm with Joe. I really do hope that progress can be made. We might disagree on spin or whatever it was earlier on, but I think the truth is both sides know this cannot go on.
No. Sir Ranald, the biggest supporter of the French police in this country. Which is really unfair of me. I want to say thank you to my panel and have a chat with Jacob Rees-Mogg. So the news broke overnight, the death of Lord Tebbit, a very significant figure.
Hugely significant figure, and I'm going to be talking about that with Ian Duncan Smith. He really was one of the leading forces in Margaret Thatcher's government. He dealt with the trade union legislation, but also he cut through to exactly the voters you're trying to cut through to. People who work hard, play by the rules, and felt that the state wasn't looking after them. And he was their representative.
Did the IRA cost him a chance of being a Prime Minister?
I think they did, yes. But again, he was a wonderfully dutiful man. I mean, he looked after his wife. He had this image of being a bit of a thug. Actually, he was a gentleman who looked after his wife in her illness.
But actually, the reason we thought he was a thug was because of the way spitting image portrayed him.
Well, also, I think he quite liked the image of being a thug. I mean, to be fair. But he devoted his life, in sickness and in health, to looking after his wife and gave up political success for that, which is really very noble.
And what else, Jacob?
Well, I'm going to be talking about the King's speech, because he's going to be speaking at Windsor, and it's been briefed by the palace to be not making Britain a fortress, but you and I want it to be a fortress.
It's an island.
Keep out all these illegal
it's an island.
immigrants.
And he says there are no borders between us and France.
Well, and Downing Street isn't saying they've written the speech. They're walking away from it.
And I have to say I'm extremely worried. I'm extremely worried about it. Now, what will be interesting over the course of the next few days is what the weather's like and how many will cross the English Channel. So let's have a look with Aidan McGibbon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Sunny and warm out there for many of us today, but it is turning cloudier from the northwest, leading to some damp weather for Western Scotland.